Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Brazos Valley, Brazos UU for short. My name is John Ivy, and I am serving as your worship assistant today. I come to this church because our faith welcomes my questions, and it allows me to seek answers that resonate with me. Again, welcome. We are a congregation that values making a difference in our community and helping our members to grow in health and depth. We are a welcoming congregation, which means we celebrate and welcome all people of diverse sexual orientations and gender identities. We also strive to welcome people across diversities of race, age, ability, and belief. So whoever you are, wherever you have come from, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome and encouraged here. Honoring the value of spiritual freedom and diversity, we have no statement of doctrine. As a covenanted community, we agree to a set of principles that we all follow as we search for truth and how it applies to ethical living. Unitarian Universalism is a faith of covenant, not creed. This means that Unitarian Universalists seek and use wisdom from many diverse sources. During this time of pandemic, and in the midst of our planned building project, our weekly services and our web presence is our church home. We encourage everyone to visit our website, brazos-uu.org. There, you can learn more about our community and what is happening, and you can sign up for our weekly eCast and our monthly newsletter. Our schedule of virtual meetings and links to those meetings can be found on our website calendar. To find us on social media, search the web using UUCBV. If you wish to contribute your musical talents, if you have a great story to share about life's journey, or if you have a passion for social justice, we would love to hear from you. Our service today will connect with the solstice, which occurs tomorrow on the longest night of the year, and also find things to love and value about the darkness, both literally and figuratively.
These words are by the Reverend Mark Stringer. He writes, "As the year winds down to its close, and we are submerged once again in the seasonal darkness we have come to know so well, we have reason to think back upon the year that was, if only because it will soon be gone. We think back to the friends we have made, the sorrow we have endured, the love we have found, the loneliness we have survived. We think back to the blessings of being forgiven and the gift we offered to ourselves when we forgive. We think back to those who listened to us in our times of need and the times we could have listened more. We think back to the things we traded for our time and to what we may have overlooked in the process. We think back to the times when we were afraid and uncertain, and we trudged ahead anyway. And the times when we were compassionate, when we could have been cold. In this season of still growing night, may we see more clearly against the dark backdrop of our living, the true light of our lives, the love we give to others, the peace we nurture in ourselves. Let us worship together in this time."
Thank you, Reverend Christian. As I light our chalice today, I invite you to light your own chalice if you have one. Please say our chalice lighting words with me. We light the chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, as a beacon of hope for all who seek justice, dignity, and compassion, and in celebration of the life of truth and meaning we share together. Now, please join me in saying our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
It's time for our time for all ages, in which we speak to everyone, but especially to some of our younger members. Today in service, we're talking about something called solstice, which happens twice a year, though they're a little different each time. Tomorrow marks the winter solstice, which is the longest night and shortest day of our year. It also marks the beginning of winter, though with cold temperatures lately, it may already feel like winter has come. Now, this phenomenon we call the winter solstice is caused when the Earth's axis, that is, the way it's tilted, it tilts the farthest away from the Earth, giving less than 12 hours of daylight to all locations north of the equator. It should be noted that right now in the southern hemisphere, it's the beginning of summer, and they're having their longest days of the year. So here in the northern hemisphere, though, it's the day of greatest darkness. The solstice has always been a time of great hope, hope for the sun's rebirth, hope for the beginning of days lengthening and nights becoming shorter, which will happen for the next 6 months until we arrive at the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, the shortest night. For many centuries, for many thousands of years, in fact, people around the world have marked the winter solstice with festivals, with great fires, with parties, with food aplenty. Though different cultures celebrate it in different ways, all of them, many of them, have noted this event every year. Now, in this time of year, that is, there are many things that happen. One of them is that many plants go dormant or even die. We often talk about the leaves falling or turning brown. The grass is often turned to that shade of yellow. But there are some plants that thrive at this time of year and show us their brightest colors. There's the holly, made famous in many songs with its bright colors. There's mistletoe, which is its brightest green at this time of the year, or we notice it more at least because so many other plants are brown. There's also something that my grandmother loved. She loved two plants especially at this time of year. One of them is called a poinsettia. It's a bright plant with these brilliant red leaves. They're very popular at this time of year. You may have seen them. And the other is something she kept in her house all the time called Christmas cactus. There's several species of this cactus, but most of them have their blooms at the time of year nearest Christmas. That is, they bloom pink or white or even red flowers about this time of year when most flowering plants aren't having any flowers at all. She loved this cactus and always had one around our house, and every year about this time of year we would love to see this beautiful flowers. So however you mark solstice this year, whether you do or not, I encourage you to think about what it means to have this time of year, our longest night, our shortest day, and the beginning of the return of the sun. Look around and see if there are any plants near you that are in full bloom or at their very greenest right now, while so few are. Thank you for sharing this time with me. And now we move on with our service.
If we were having worship service in person, this is the time when we would pass the basket. This church shares the proceeds of the offering plate donation every week to support important nonprofit organizations with which we work. This month, we are proud to support the Brazos Valley Food Bank. Because of the economic crisis caused by the pandemic, the need for food in our community is great, and that need will only grow. Please be as generous as you can. If you wish to make an offering, you can mail your check, or for your convenience, you can donate online. On our homepage at brazos-uu.org, you can find our mailing address at the bottom, and at the top you will see a Donate Here link. In the chat box, you'll see that link now. May each of us look into our hearts. How much love, how much generosity, how much faith, how much gratitude, and how much hope is there? We give thanks for these gifts we have given, for those we receive, and for each other.
I invite you now into our time of prayer and meditation, something we do each service. We'll have some words today by Laurel Gray, and then we'll follow that with a time of silence. So take a moment to get comfortable in your seats or wherever you are. Get those wiggles out, relax. And I present to you these words again by Laurel Gray. It's called A Blessing for the Dark. When the facade of your so-called worth crumbles, when you find yourself lost in the dark, I hope you take your time. I hope you listen for the sound of snow. Try to taste the sun as it casts sharp shadows over you. Remember, there is space here. Your body still knows how to breathe, how to heal, how to recall your wholeness. When the facade of your so-called worth crumbles, I hope you tell the truth about the wreckage, at least to yourself, and maybe when the time comes, to someone else. I hope you dig deep enough into your faith that you find the ground under the rubble of what was never enough. That immaculate lie of conditional love, I hope you let it fall. For you've always had been made of star sparks and darkness, a being held in balance, born of the very mystery of life. When the facade of your so-called worth crumbles, when you find yourself lost in the dark, I hope you let it wash over you. I hope you remember parts of yourself you didn't know were lost. I hope you welcome them home, amidst that echoing silence, in that still, open place. I hope you plant yourself beneath the rubble and wait for spring, for the lavender twilight to remind you of the peace you found in the dark. Amen. Join me in a time of silence, please. Take a moment to bring yourself back together with us. May it be so. Take a moment each Sunday to share those joys and concerns, those sorrows most on our hearts. If you have something to share, you can do so now in the chat box so that we all may share it with you. As always, there's no pressure to share. Know that everything you have is held by this community, whether you share it or not. We do want to lift up some joys and sorrows that affect all of us to some degree. I lift up that many of us have been holding on to things for so long through all this pandemic, and maybe now, as the year draws to a close soon, it's time to let them go. I want to lift up all those struggling with the holidays right now. It can be so much, so many feelings, so many things to do, so much going on, so much stress. Know that all of us are here together to hold one another, to support one another, even through these tough times. We lift up once again all those suffering with the coronavirus and with its effects. For our parents and grandparents and other family members, for friends, for those we love, for those who have concerns about their children's safety in school or at home, and for all essential workers who present themselves daily, possibly to harm. We lift up great joy, too, that there are vaccines now going out and beginning to work, first on our most essential medical workers, but soon for many, many more people, and in the coming months, hopefully for everyone. We remember once again that Black lives really do matter as we strive for justice, equity, and anti-racism in our thoughts and actions. And just a reminder, if you haven't already, there's still time to express any joy or sorrow, concern you have. You can share it with everyone in the chat box now. And for all those that go unspoken, unwritten, know that they are held to in this community by all of us.
Today's reading, Dark and Light, Light and Dark, was written by Jackie James. Blackmail, blacklist, black mark, Black Monday, Black Mood, Black-Hearted, Black Plague, Black Mass, Black Market. Good guys wear white, bad guys wear black. We fear black cats and the dark continent. But it's okay to tell a white lie. Lily white hands are coveted. It's great to be pure as a driven snow. Angels and brides wear white. Devil's food cake is chocolate. Angel's food cake is white. We shape language, and we are shaped by it. In our culture, white is esteemed. It is heavenly, sun-like, clean, pure, immaculate, innocent, and beautiful. At the same time, black is evil, wicked, gloomy, depressing, angry, sullen. Ascribing negative and positive values to black and white enhances the institutionalization of this culture's racism. Let us acknowledge the negative connotations of whiteness. White things can be soft, vulnerable, pallid, and ashen. Light can be blinding, bleaching, and enervating. Conversely, we must acknowledge that darkness has a redemptive character, that in darkness there is power and beauty. The dark nurtured and protected us before our birth. Welcome darkness. Don't be afraid of it or deny it. Darkness brings relief from the blinding sun, from scorching heat, from exhausting labor. Night signals permission to rest, to be with our loved ones, to conceive new life, to search our hearts, to remember our dreams. The dark of winter is a time of hibernation. Seeds grow in the dark, fertile earth. The words black and dark don't need to be destroyed or ignored, only balanced and reclaimed in their wholeness. The words white and light don't need to be destroyed or ignored, only balanced and reclaimed in their wholeness. Imagine a world that had only light or dark. We need both, dark and light, light and dark.
Praise to the moon, bright queen of the skies, jewel of the black night, the light of our eyes. Brighter than starlight, whiter than snow, look down on us in the darkness below. If well you should find us, then well let us say, be it 7 times better when you make your way. Be it 7 times better when we greet the dawn. So light up our way and keep us from all harm. Give strength to the weary, give alms to the poor, to the tainted and needy, thy senses restore. Give song to our voices, give sight to our eyes, to see the sun bow as the full moon shall rise. Cast your eyes downward to our dwelling place, 3 times for favor and 3 times for grace. Open the dark clouds your face for to see, to banish misfortune and calamity. In the name of Our Lady, bright Maiden of Grace, lighting the sky as she takes the sun's place, she is casting a silvery path on the sea. All praise to the moon for eternity.
So a couple years ago, when our family still lived in California, there was a night when our whole family was driving home from church at night. It had been a long day, lots of activities. Things had already gotten dark. And normally we would take the very well-lit highway, which went around the hills, back to the town in which we lived, to our little neighborhood, tucked up in the next set of hills. But this time, For reasons I don't fully remember, we took the back way. Perhaps it was because I was hoping one or more of my boys would calm down, maybe even fall asleep if we took a slightly longer route home. Now, the longer route involved taking the road down to the bottom of the hills from church, around the side of a large ridge of hills in the Bay Area, and then back to a ranch road and past a subdivision all alone out in the middle of nowhere, sort of, and bam, there we were. Out in the middle of ranch land, nothing but grass and trees and darkness. The only light I could see on this cloudy night was the headlights of our car reflecting off things in front of me. Even the stars weren't going to make any appearances on this night. And it was dark, about as dark as I've ever seen it outside. And I just thought, this is something amazing. And I have to share this with people like you. So we often speak at this time of the year of the long nights and short days. I've already talked about it in this service. And the lack of light. For some of us, this results in our mood being not so great. For some, it's really extreme, and it's called seasonal affective disorder. I don't have that, but I feel it too a little bit. My mood is a little down usually this time of year. This year, maybe it's joined with post-election anxiety or relief, I guess. And that missing the sunshine too. It gets dark so early this time of year. And no matter how many years I live through it, no matter how much I experience it, still it comes to me as a surprise every year just how early the sun sets. But it's not just at this time of year, but all the time that we too easily slip into a certain way of talking and thinking too, for that matter. Now I'm going to boil it down to its simplest form, and one most of us wouldn't use, but the formula is this, that dark is bad and light is good. You probably know some examples of what I'm saying. There's dark humor, or dark nights of the soul, or it's a dark day for whoever. He has darkness in him. These sorts of metaphors and symbolic languages and their metaphoric partner, let your light shine. It's a bright day for, you know the sort of language. Even in last week's service, in which we explored Hanukkah, which is also known as the Festival of Lights, it's all too easy to fall into this sort of rhetorical trap. Now you might wonder why any of this matters. I think it does. Our culture has a habit of equating darkness with danger and evil and scary things, and light with good and warmth and safety. You've heard this a million times, and I fear that we sometimes tread very much into this territory in our worship sometimes with things like the light of truth, or even our beloved flaming chalice. And so I want to talk about this, because in our world today, this really matters. Because words matter. It matters because the more we talk about light being good and dark being bad, it has an impression on us. And in a country with as troubled a racial history as ours, that matters. When we say Black Lives Matter, we're affirming many things. First, of course, that those lives do matter as much as any others. And also that as much as we are all in this together, we're not all facing the same things. It would be easy to paper over our differences as if they're not real. And yes, of course, there are certain things about them that are not real. Race is a social construct. But it also has very real, very, very real implications in our world. Now, as someone who uses words for a living, I want to reconstruct how I use metaphors about light and darkness, because that matters too. I've been trying to do this for about 5 years, and I found it's shockingly difficult. I want to avoid saying things are dark when I mean they are troubling or bad, because those aren't the same thing. And I want to lift up good representations of darkness too. I like to wear dark, bold colors a lot of the time. I like dark beer better than light beer. I think dark chocolate is, well, I don't want to start any fights, to be honest. Let's just say it's as good as milk chocolate and leave it at that. Batman, my favorite superhero, is known as the Dark Knight. In fact, my favorite time is at night, especially after everyone else has gone to bed in my house, when I can have a few minutes alone. I'm a night owl. If you've gotten an email from me at midnight, that's not a mistake. That's when I do some of my best work, I hope. So some of those are a little funny, but I hope they make my point. And of course, the opposite is true too. Why do we always say light is such a great thing? I remember particularly an awful sunburn I got a few years ago in New Jersey. Light was no great thing for me that day. I mean, light is literally low-level radiation, after all. Religious traditions, including the ones we draw upon in our own worship, have different ideas about this whole light and dark thing than the way we speak of it often. Though yes, there's some muddledness to it. There are none. No religious tradition that has any totally consistent thoughts about, well, anything. But still, I think there's much we can learn about light and dark by looking at a few. There's a lovely passage from Taoism. It goes like this. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The unnameable is the eternally real. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. Yet mystery and manifestations arise from the same source. And here's the point. The source is called darkness. Darkness within darkness. The gateway to all understanding. I want to say it again. The source is called darkness. Moreover, the Jewish and Christian traditions tell us something that has a bit of the same resonance. To quote briefly from Genesis, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. Now, it does say that light is good, but if you notice, it doesn't say darkness is bad. It says that in the beginning there was darkness, and God added light. It's not a value judgment about the darkness. Indeed, the darkness was there first. Now, it's dangerous to try to make connections between scripture and science. There's some overlap occasionally, but in this one specific instance, I think it's interesting to look at the comparison. Now, science, physics, that is, posits the Big Bang Theory, which you've probably heard of. And there's an interesting thing I never learned until just a few years ago. As you may know, the theory posits that in the beginning of the universe, there was an incredibly dense, tiny spot that then burst outward, creating everything we know as the universe in an explosion of unimaginable heat and force. We are, all of us, living in the latter stages of this explosion. The universe is still expanding from it. So, that's interesting enough, but to the interesting thing I mentioned a moment ago. And I want to get this right, so I'm going to quote it. For the first 380,000 years or so, that is after the Big Bang, the universe was essentially too hot for light to shine. This is from France's National Center of Space Research. To explain it a little more, that is, light as we know it didn't exist because there was nothing either to create it or for it to travel through so that it could be seen. Because that 380,000 year mark was when gas, which via nuclear reactions creates light, and also then helps transmit the light, first formed. It was too hot for gas to even form before that. And it was 400 million years later when clouds of gas began to form into stars, and then light as we know it first shone forth. In other words, our universe was created and lived in darkness for a long time, which tells me that it's not something we have to fear, but the very essence of our creation. So friends, I encourage us to embrace darkness, especially in this time of year when it's so abundant. It can be our friend and home, our place of birth or rebirth. Darkness is where creation comes from. It's the seed under the soil, down in that darkness, from which new life bursts forth. It's in the darkness of the womb that new life grows among us. So in these times we've been in, some might call them dark, that we are still in the times that lie ahead of us, we have to stay strong, support one another, continue to resist evil, and remember, it is in darkness that something new may be able to take hold. So friends, this is the darkest time of year here in the Northern Hemisphere. Enjoy the dark, embrace the dark, and see what comes from it in the year ahead of us. May it be so.
People look east, the time is near of the crowning of the year. Make your house fair as you are able. Trim the hearth and set the table. People look east and sing today. Love, the guest is on the way. Furrows, be glad, the earth is there. One more seed is planted there. Give up your strength, the seed to nourish, that in course the flower may flourish. People look east and people look east. Love, the rose is on the way. Stars keep the watch when night is dim. One more light the bowl shall brim, shining beyond the
Now please join me in extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we gather together again.
In this season of darkness, look for signs of new creation. We know that it's from the darkness, from the void, that creation springs. So in this season of long nights, let us find the joy in being together, of celebrating in quiet moments, in knowing what all of life has to offer us. Our worship is ended, and our service begins. Go in peace.